Halala maticha halala. Halala zimta halala. The Director of Ceremonies, the Zimta National President, Mr. Richard Gundane, Zimta National Executive members here present, our invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. It is my singular honor and privilege to warmly welcome you to a uniquely organized 2013 World Teachers' Day commemorations in Harare Metropolitan Province. Special welcome is here extended to the 9 Zimta provinces representatives here present, enjoy the friendly and warm hospitality of Zimta Harare Metropolitan Province and its people. Before I sit down, Mr. President, educators have been suffering for a very long time. It is time that we seriously look into improving conditions of service for educators. Having said this, let me wish you a successful World Teachers Day commemoration. Feel warmly and welcome. I thank you.
One by one, old and young, black and white, dark and light, we are all here for a reason. Rich and poor, girl and boy, weak and strong, we belong all together here for a reason, to see his kingdom come, as we share his love with you, with me. We can make a difference in this nation. With you, with me, we can share a dream. Hand in hand, side by side, we can build a stronger generation. Building people, building dreams, with you and me.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremony, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I want to start by acknowledging the presence of all Zimta members and those who are still coming in, and probably make introductions so that we know who is in the house. I'll start by acknowledging Harare Province that is hosting 2013 National Commemorations of World Teachers Day. Welcome, Harare. Can you show your hands, Harare? Let me see how many are in Harare. Oh, the whole hall looks like it's Harare. Thank you. Right. Having acknowledged the presence of the host, Harare, I want to recognize the host executive for Harare, led by his able and versatile young old man, Jackson. With your executive, please. Can I see your executive? That's part of Harare executive. Some are working behind the scenes. Thank you very much, Mr. Mtsamelo. I'll go on to look at representatives that have come all the way from Zimta's 9 provinces, because we are commemorating this day in all the regions of the country, but we have sent representatives to this one in Harare in particular. Let me start with our neighbors who are joining us from Mashonaland Central. Thank you and welcome, Mashonaland Central. May I see those who are coming from Mashonaland West? Mash West? Oh yeah, I can see one hand in the darkness there. Welcome, thank you. A round of applause for that one. So far, that's the only one. We're expecting more from Mash West. Let's see those from Midlands. Yes, I can see 1, 2 from Midlands. Thank you. A round of applause and recognition. Right. We go on to Bulawayo Metropolitan Province. Bulawayo. Oh, there they are. A round of applause for Bulawayo from that corner there. And then we come to Matabeleland North. Matabele North, all the way from Victoria Falls, Pinga, Cholocho. Yes, they are being in the middle there. A round of applause for Matabele North, please. Thank you. Matabele South. Matabele South, yes, they stand there. A round of applause for Matabele South. Thank you. We come to Masvingo. Yes, there they are, all the way from Masvingo, from Great Zimbabwe. There they are. Welcome. We come to Manicaland. Yes, there they are, Manicaland, right far end there and here. Welcome, Manicaland. Thank you. Marsh East. Marsh East, yes, I can see some. A round of applause for Mashonaland East. I think I have covered all the provinces. Did I leave any? Right. I want to say, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, this is a full house. We have all the members of ZIMTA represented by their various delegates to witness World Teachers' Day 2013. Having said that, let me go on to look at members of National Executive here present. And of course, I will not repeat Ms. Mtamiri, who is representing the province, but let me start with the woman teacher representative representing all women teachers in the National Executive here present with us, Madame Elizabeth Mahiana. She's here with us. And yes, she will be organizing very shortly our famous trip to China for both men and women. And not only for women, for both men and women. I think they had a discussion yesterday. Let's get ready for that when they come back to us. Right. I also want to recognize the presence of our guests who are here, and at the appropriate time, they will be given full detail. We have got already Mrs. J.S. Maposa, Deputy Education Director, Primary, ECD, and Special Needs Education. Madam Maposa, welcome. Representing the PET Harare. Yes, she is. Thank you. And then I want to recognize, in absentia, I think, let me start ending with that one. Let me recognize our special guest and invitee, our colleague, friend, and brother, John Bradshaw is here. That's John for you. At the appropriate time, he will talk to you and full introductions will be made. And in absentia, of course, we're expecting the Honorable Minister to join us, and he will be talking to us. And lastly, the man at the helm of this organization, who will be talking to us as well this afternoon, Richard Gundan, the President, is here. There is. Thank you very much. Briefly, these are the people that I...
boys kana tiri dzega kumabhotoso madzimai anofevha hama dzavo zvekuti dhu ndikati sei ndikanzi vekwangu kana vakavhakacha vanogadzikirwa chigubhu chemazowe achidyairutwa nefanta zvikanzi neumwe avo vari bheta vanenge vachitonwa vanouya kwangu vari wese ndikati sei zvekuti zvikanzi vanoona TV kusvika 3 AM voita usimbe hwekusumuka kunodzima switch obudisa rekeni muhomwe kupfuura switch nerekeni ichokwadi here maloya kunyepa mati kudi one more time ichokwadi here imi maloya kunyepa kana chiri chokwadi masungwa munovadireiko vazhinji venyu munogona kuridza magitare kudarika ini kana kuti mungadai makagona asi musi wakaonekwa kunyanya varume makaonekwa wakabata kagaroni kane tambo vabereki vakatora shamhu ukabhurachiwa sterek iwe una kuzoita ka ichokwadi here vana gwenyambira marombe hamuna kupindura wani kashe guys hamuna kupindura wani sure regai ndibvunze futi ichokwadi here vana gwenyambira marombe mati kudii kana chiri chokwadi pamabiko munovadireiko
Just recognize Mr. Gondane for the president of ZIMTA and your committee, to Mr. Ndlovu, the executive, and his executive assistants. I'm looking forward to meeting our new Mr. Dekora. I think he has a big job to do. Would we agree? He has much to do. His main job is to pay us more. I never met anybody who minded getting paid more. So even my teachers tell me I should pay them more. But it's a great privilege and a great pleasure for me to be with you today to celebrate with you World Teachers' Day. I'm sure some of you thought that Monday to Friday, it's a long time to listen to a headmaster. But to listen to a headmaster on Saturday as well, so I hope it's not too disappointing. As you might appreciate, I'm blind. And I've been totally blind for a number of years now. And so what I'd like to ask you to do, and I know that you are teachers and you don't allow cheating in your classroom, do you? No cheating. We don't approve of cheating, and we don't allow it. Okay? So I can trust you. I would like you to stand up and to close your eyes. So please stand, close your eyes. And I'd like to ask you to shake the hand of the person who is behind you, with your eyes still closed. You can greet the person, shake the hand of the person behind you. With your eyes closed. You are well behaved. Thank you. If you managed. Normally when I do that exercise, the audience makes a lot more noise, because one of the things about being blind is that we communicate only by sound. So to find the person who is behind you, who you would have noticed wasn't facing you but was facing the person behind them, you now have to make a noise, and you have to find a new way of doing what would otherwise be an easy task for you. And pretty much that sums up a lot of what I want to talk about today. Let me just check my time first. But before I do that, let me just tell you a story. My son is at university in America, and he finished school in 2009. I finished school in 1978. My father finished school in 1949. and my grandfather finished school in 1915. Anybody here who finished school in 1915? Anybody here who finished school in 1949? No. But there are some of you who finished school before me. But what I want to ask you to think about, when my grandfather was born, there were no motor cars on the island where he lived. He grew up in Barbados. He was the 6th generation to grow up in Barbados, and the 5 generations before him had been priests. And there were no motor cars. He didn't believe there was such a thing. When my son was born in 1991, the World Wide Web was invented. Now that my son is at university in America, the Voyager spacecraft 1, 2 weeks ago, passed out of the solar system. So in other words, beyond the reach of the sun in terms of any sense of its gravity, a meaningful sense of its gravity. 20 billion kilometers. So my grandfather was born in a time when there were no motor cars. My son is a student now when the man-made object that we launched in the 70s, just before I left school, has traveled 20 billion kilometers. I worked it out roughly. If $21 notes is a millimeter, 20 billion is 2,000 kilometers from, 1,000 kilometers from here to Johannesburg. If you put all the notes on edge, you would make a line which was from here to Johannesburg. I'm sure some of you wouldn't mind just a small piece of that. You'd have to stand behind me. I'm getting the piece in front. So, but the question for us as teachers is, how does your classroom look different compared to the classroom which you sat in when you were a pupil, and compared to the classroom which my father sat in? My father was at St. George's and taught by the Jesuits. Some of you were taught by Jesuits, I'm sure. If you were taught by Jesuits, clap your hands. And how does your classroom look different to the classroom which my grandfather sat in almost 100 years ago? I think the sad thing is that there's not much difference. But we've gone from no motor cars to an object, a satellite in space, which is 20 billion kilometers away and beyond the reach of the solar wind. Those of you physicists will have to teach the historians and English teachers about the solar wind. And yet in all that time, we've not changed the way we teach. We like to stand up in front of the class. We like the class to be facing forwards. We like the class to be quiet and paying attention and writing notes. Am I right? Those are the students that we like. The ones who are sitting there looking at us with enthusiasm and eager to learn whatever we have to say. I taught postgraduate students at Wits University in Joburg for a number of years, and then I came back to Zimbabwe, and I taught postgraduate students at the University of Zimbabwe. Let me tell you that the class that I most enjoyed teaching was the class that I saw here at the University of Zimbabwe. We had the most fantastic students. They were eager, they were bright, they were intelligent, they were perfect students. And you guys taught those students in school. And we were grateful to you. So you did a great job. Because those guys, they sat in the benches in front of me, and their eyes were very bright, looking at me, waiting for the wisdom that I had. But in this world, I don't have enough time to teach all the wisdom that those young men and women needed to know. And for you and me in schools, that's our challenge. Because the world is going so fast now, that how do we teach our kids what they need to know. So the theme for today is a call for teachers. But what I want to say to you is, I want to say that the theme for today is a call for learners. Because you and I'm a little bit embarrassed because you'll think that this was organized ahead of time, but you and I, when we grew up and we went to school, the world was one way. And now, however many years later, the world is something different. When you went to school, did you have a telephone? Did you have a telephone in your pocket? Did you have a computer? Did you have a computer in your pocket? I'm a little bit embarrassed to show this, but here is the computer in my pocket. And for $15.50, the Acer people tell us they can sell us a computer in our pocket. So it's by coincidence that what I want to talk to you about fits in with the sponsors of today. But on this machine, or the $15.50 machine, on this machine, we can learn so much. We have so much information which is here for us. So if I ask you what is the height of the tallest man-made object in Africa, how many of you can tell me? What is the height of the tallest man-made object in Africa? Okay, thank you. I need to get my phone, is what the lady in the front here said. But on your phone, you can easily find it. You can Google highest man-made object in Africa. You may know that it's the pyramids. My next question will be, for how long was the Pyramid of Cheops the highest man-made object in the world? And what was the next highest man-made object? And you'll look on your phone, and it's a little bit harder to find it, because the question isn't one that Google can answer straight away. But maybe. And you'll have to go all the way until you get to the Eiffel Tower. So here in Africa, we built something that for thousands of years was the tallest man-made object anywhere in the world. And we forget that technological achievement. So what is it that if we can find all of that on our phone, on the computer in our pocket, what are we doing differently in our classrooms? And so thinking about that, let me also give you this fact, that 100 years ago, at about the time my grandfather was leaving school, 3%, so 1 out of 30 of the working population was involved in a job where they had to use their mental strength. Only 1 out of 30, 3%. That included doctors, engineers, teachers, and there weren't very many other people, a few engineers. Nowadays, it's 1 out of 3. 1 out of 3 of your students who leave your classroom when they go to work will be involved in a profession where they need to use their mental strength. And we as teachers, what do we teach our kids? We teach our kids to develop their mental strength. We don't do press-ups. We don't do running. We don't do any of those things. That's the sports department. When they go to the field and they play soccer, some of you guys are going to play soccer this afternoon, am I right? It's to develop our physical strength. And 100 years ago, 27 out of 30 people were in a job where they used their physical strength and not their brains. Nowadays, only 2 out of 3 people use their physical strength. 1 out of 3 uses their mental strength. And yet, I would suggest that we still continue to teach the way that you were taught, and I was taught, my father was taught, your parents were taught, and my grandfather was taught. So how do we think about it differently? How do we think about what we do with the computer which is in our pocket? Because do we need to learn the facts the way we used to? My grandfather had to learn Shakespeare, page after page after page. He had to recite it perfectly. I never learned any Shakespeare. But that's because I was idle. My teacher tried to make me. So, what is it that we should be doing? Should we be teaching facts, or should we be teaching kids how to manipulate and engage? Many of you are primary school teachers. Give us a cheer, those of you who are primary school teachers. I have to say, there's a special place in heaven for those of you who teach infants. As a university lecturer, I always thought it's not possible to teach infants because you're teaching them so much which is of such fundamental value to what they do. You're teaching them morals, you're teaching them ethics, you're teaching them the truth, and you're teaching them how to interact with friends. We at university, it's easy. There's an audience, I stand here, I talk, I take off my microphone, I walk out. You in the primary schools, and especially you in the infants, you're taking them to the toilet afterwards as well. So, I'm sure when you get to heaven, there'll be a nice, comfortable place for you. You deserve it. You deserve it. So, but I'd like all of you, those of you who are not in the primary schools, when you pass by a primary school one day, in the middle of the morning and they're having their break, and the kids are out on the playground and they're playing, I want to ask you all to stop and to walk into that playground and see what's happening there. Because what I think you will see happening there, firstly, is it looks very chaotic. Kids are running here, there, and everywhere. And there's too much noise. Am I right? It's fantastic. These kids, when they play, they make noise. Then they come to high school and we say, hey, don't make noise. Isn't that right? Keep quiet, sit down, pay attention. But those kids in primary school, they're making noise, they're having fun, they're making noise. You go to the infants classroom, there's noise. Am I right? Yeah. And the infants teacher, she's trying hard to keep the kids quiet. Shh, the headmaster's coming. And the headmaster comes past, well done, Mrs. So-and-so. Nice classroom. And then we go away. But when kids play, I would like to say to you, when kids play, kids learn. So why, when they come to be older and older and older, do we tell them to play less and to make less noise? We should allow kids to play. Some of you are going to buy the computer in a pocket. And how are you going to learn how to use this computer in a pocket? Most of you are teachers, you're going to ask one of the kids in your class. Because, hey, they're young and they understand. We are confused. Okay. It was the same. I must tell you, my grandmother, she bought a video recorder. And it had some of you are too old now for video recorders. But it used to have the time on the front. And when the time wasn't set, it would just flash, 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 flash. My grandmother got very cross. Because at night, when she turned all the lights off, there was this light going flash, flash. And it was disturbing her. When she was old, she was just in her single room. And from her bed, she could see this light. So she got a piece of elastoplaster and she covered it. I said, Granny, you can't cover it. You must set it. So when you wake up in the night, you know the time. She says, when I wake up, if it's dark, I go back to sleep. If it's light, I get up. So you don't need to know the time. But we need to ask our kids how to do these things. But what is the best thing you can do with this new technology? You can play. We must play. I keep saying to the kids I teach, and those when I did computer science, the best thing you can do is you must play. And when you turn on this machine, you'll find the things to play with. And we worry. When we get old, we worry. Maybe it's going to break. We know $15.50, it's not for free. Okay. But we worry about these things. When you're 2 years old or when you're 5 years old, you're not worried. You just play. And if it breaks, you say, Mummy, it's broken. You can give me another one. But these things, I have to say, they don't break. We must learn to play. So when we teach our kids, what I want to encourage you to do is to say, we need to teach them in a way which allows them to learn after they leave school. How do we as teachers learn? I get frustrated at my school when a teacher comes to me to say, oh, well, I don't know that. You must send me on a course. And I say, why must I send you on a course? I need that money to buy my car. No. Why must I send you on a course? She says, because I must learn. I say, no. You must learn because you must play. I'll give you the computer in your pocket if you need it in your classroom. So the minister says, talk to the minister. He must give you the computer in your pocket because you need it in your classroom. We need these things in our classrooms because we need to know as teachers that we are still learners. And that's the scary thing for us as teachers, is that we are learners as much as our kids are learners, because the world is changing so quick that we need to learn tomorrow the things that we are going to teach our kids the day after. When I first started lecturing at university, I was a bit scared. You know, university lecturing, it's something. So I said to the head of my department, who was a kind old professor, I said, I'm a bit scared of this teaching at university. He said, oh, don't worry. It's easy. The only thing you have to do is you have to be one day in front of your students. So you must learn today what you're going to teach tomorrow. Then the students, they don't know. They don't know if you learnt it yesterday or last year or 10 years ago. So long as you teach them today, it's fine. And isn't that true for us? It's true for us. But actually, what I say to my teachers, the best thing that we can do for our kids is to make them learn it today. And if we don't know it, it doesn't matter. Because what we must do is have an environment where they are encouraged to learn by themselves. And with the computer in our pocket, they have that environment. They have that choice. Those of you who've got smartphones, you might, from time to time, decide to look at the TED Talks. I don't know if you know. A noise for those of you who know about TED Talks. There's a fantastic website, TED, TED Talks. And on there, you'll find many, many talks. These are short talks, maybe maximum length 20 minutes. But you'll find on there that there's an Indian gentleman who has done a series of experiments where he's taken computers into the rural areas of India. And he just puts it there and he says to kids in the street, here's the thing, I'm coming back in 2 months' time, tell me what you know. And it's amazing what they know, because these kids are playing. There's no teacher, there's nobody telling them, and they learn. So then he went to a classroom in rural India and he said to the kids in this poor area, he said, here's a system. I want you to, in 2 months' time I'm coming back, I'm going to give you a test on biotechnology. The kids said, what? Biotechnology, what's that? And he said, I don't know, but I'm going, bye. And he went away. And those kids learnt. And when he came back in 2 months' time, he gave them a test and they got 30%. And these were teenagers, 13-year-olds. So, okay, 30% is still a failure. That's not good enough for us, is it? So he went into the slum and he brought out a girl who was a little bit older, but still a teenager in her late teens. And he said to this girl, you are going to help these kids learn biotechnology. She says, I know nothing. He says, yeah, I know that. But you're going to help them. All you're going to do is you're going to sit there, and whenever they do anything, you're going to say, that's fantastic. Wow, that's amazing. You guys are incredible. This is beautiful. And 2 months later, he came back, and the kids got 50%. Now, if those kids can get 50% with no teacher, how much can they get with you? They can get plenty. 75 is not much, because you are there. And we are here to celebrate what you can do for our kids. And I have to say to you, I keep saying to my teachers, that the reason we do an excellent job is because when you and I retire, and we're going to go back to our musha, and we're going to sit quietly in the sunshine, who is going to be running the country? Who is going to be running the hospital? Who is going to be fixing the motor cars? Who is going to be making the roads? It is your pupils, your students, and my students. And for selfish reasons, we all want classrooms with children who are happy and motivated. Am I right? A round of applause for children who, when they come to the door, they want to run to the classroom because they're ready to learn what it is that you have to say. So, in conclusion, let me say these few words. Please, can I ask you to have fun when you go to work? When you have fun going to work, your students will have fun too. Please, can I ask you to play? I'm not your headmaster. When you say to your headmaster, I'm just playing, then the headmaster may not think the same. Those of you headmasters here, clap your hands. It's a few. It's a few. Please, can I encourage you to encourage your staff to play. When you go to, and that's to play with what you have, to play with the knowledge, to play with the information, to play with the technology, to discover. And the last thing is to encourage your kids in class to communicate. Because in all our lives, wherever we go, we need to communicate and collaborate. So, a happy World Teachers' Day to all of you. It's an opportunity for everybody to recognize the great work that you do and to appreciate the efforts that you go through thick and thin. I think mostly it's been thin for us, but it's an opportunity for that. And today we look forward to another year of prosperity, another year where things get better, another year where in our classrooms we are able to do what we train to do, what our vocation is, and another year when people can understand and appreciate the great work that you as teachers do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, MC. This is our day, World Teachers' Day. A call for teachers. And Dr. John just said, it's not enough to say a call for teachers. It should be a call for teachers and learners. And who am I to refuse after the doctor has spoken? Thank you for modifying that. So as we move along today with the program, with our discussions, let's remember to play. Let's remember to make a call on behalf of the educators in this country and the educators of the world, and indeed to make a call for our learners and on their behalf. I'm very grateful to note that the organizers of this auspicious occasion have invited everybody across the sectors in the teaching profession, and they did forget to invite the learners, the students. Thank you very much. Our day, our activities as educators are never complete without the learners. So thank you very much for that. The Honorable Minister of Primary and Secondary Education, in absentia, the Secretary for Primary and Secondary Education, also in absentia, our invited guest, Dr. John Bradshaw, the Provincial Education Director, represented here by Mrs. Maposa, education officers, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and comrades, not to leave out our important partners, the owners of this place, and hey, Vekune Mangwe Secondary School, Creative Credit. Thank you very much. It's an honor to have you in this conference room today. We will forever be indebted to you, and forever we will remain proud because we are associated with you. I here stand today as ZIMTA President, humbled by the task before me and grateful for the trust you have bestowed on me and the current executive, most of whom you realize are not in this house today, because they are strewn all over the country, in our 10 provinces, in our 72, 73 districts, and in our branches, commemorating and celebrating World Teachers' Day. We want to wish them well wherever they are. We are not alone in Zimbabwe. Everybody in the world is commemorating and celebrating World Teachers' Day because it is a very important day for us. Since 1966, when the ILO and UNESCO came up with a very important resolution on the status of teachers in the world, followed up by 1997, when the status of higher education personnel also had a very important resolution which outlined the most important things that have to be done in order to achieve their status. It would be naive of me to start without acknowledging what is in everybody's mind today. In all our minds, we have a number of questions. A lot of questions begging answers. Questions to do with our current situation. A lot of you must be asking, I'm living below the poverty line, and yet I am a professional. A professional who lives below the poverty line. I'm failing to send all my children to school. And as they grow up, how am I going to make sure that they complete their college education? All these questions do haunt us every day and every night. There's no wonder that we have a lot of challenges, a lot of diseases, a lot of conditions that we fail to explain, associated with our failure to address the situation we find ourselves in, the situation of poverty. Today we are making a call for teachers with regards to their salaries. On this day we gather because we have chosen hope. We do not want to despair. We do not want to give up. We are very hopeful. Because we know we can do a lot to reverse the status quo. This is why we always say we are our own liberators. we can liberate ourselves from the current challenges. In the past 5 years, we didn't make much progress. Rather, we had a leadership, a political leadership, that refused to talk to us, that refused to engage with us in social dialogue, that refused to cooperate with us when we were talking about conditions of service and the issues to do with salaries. But still, we have refused to give up. This is why we are here today in our large numbers and standing tall. And this is why, again, the doctor said it very well, that the new minister and the new government have a very big task to execute. That of making sure that my salary, Dr. John's salary, your salary, ladies and gentlemen, and the issues related to it is given priority by government. And that we are going to demand, and we are never going to give up on that. As ZIMTA, we acted proactively and drew up a position paper that we shared with colleagues in the other civil service staff associations and unions. We based our arguments and positions on the commitments made during the campaigns and after at inauguration and at several other functions made by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe. That government was seized with the welfare of the civil servants. Our point is, we need to raise our salaries above the poverty line. If we look at the poverty line at $540, I think we are being very modest in our demands. Professionals cannot live below the poverty line. There is no way. Yesterday in the morning, the Chief Executive Officer and myself had the honor to be invited to the studio, Sport FM. It was a live program, and one caller was saying, "Teachers, you are not reasonable. Why are you demanding so much money? And yet the parents whose children you are serving or you are teaching are not getting as much as you do." Wrong comparison, isn't it? Wrong comparison. We are not saying that the educators should be compared against the parents whose children they are teaching. Wrong. This is why we come up with a scientific way of determining what our salaries should be. That of the poverty line. Even that is not enough. We are only saying that is the minimum. We need to start somewhere. Otherwise, what we would like to demand is already outlined in what I have referred to before, the 1966 UNESCO ILO recommendation on the status of educators. It's there. We belong, we are workers in the world. We are professionals and we should be treated as such. So this is just going to be the starting point, asking for a PDL-informed salary. But even as we do that, we are not saying educators should get $540. No. But we are saying the least paid civil servant, who is a sweeper, employed today in government, is the one that gets $540. And what are we saying about educators? Educators should be higher up the scale. And according to the calculations that we have made, we are looking at a basic salary of $690. Starting point, that is just the starting point. Excluding allowances, transport and housing allowance, those are the traditional allowances. And also excluding the rural hardship allowance. And by the way, our conditions of service also were crafted in such a way that there is now an education allowance that we are entitled to. These will come over and above the basic salary that we are talking about. That a professional who has been called to duty like a teacher must get at the end of the month. It's very difficult to put such a value because it is too high. So this is why when we say that we are talking about these meager figures, it is just a minimum. As educators, we have remained in the profession because we feel and believe it is our purpose in life and for which we have special skills. Day in, day out, none of us approaches each day with a sense of futility that comes from the feeling that your talents are being sent to waste. Hence our slogan, teachers matter. Nobody can wish us away. Nobody can wish the important role that we play in society away. Let me share with you my belief in the power and importance of teaching. I do believe that if you take children from whatever background and maximize the amount of time they spend with a good teacher, and of course Dr. John would say, time spent with a good teacher playing. I think that's a very good model. I don't know whether we all understood that. Because we must change. The teacher of today in the 21st century must be different from the teacher of yesterday. There are 21st century literacies and intelligences that have emerged, and we have no choice but to embrace them. Right. I was not going to read my speech from this hard copy because I have a notepad which I hid here because I didn't want to see the minister. I didn't want the minister to see it because John made a call. Dr. John, he said, the minister has a tall order to make sure that all of us have these things in our pockets. So I thought if I produced mine, then he would exclude me from the line when we started receiving. But I know Mr. Ndlovu will make it possible for all ZIMTA members to get the little computers in our pockets as after 2 weeks when Creative Credit begins to deliver them at $15. What was it? $15 what? 50. So we will never remain the same. So the time we spend as teachers with our pupils is very valuable. And hence, we also have adopted another adage. It all starts with a good teacher. Very good adage, isn't it? It starts with a good teacher. But it doesn't talk about the end. Let's celebrate the start. It starts with a good teacher. Maybe the answer is in the pupils. And it ends with the quality products that we continue to churn into the world because we have imparted skills and we have also imparted sustainable education and produced children who will go into the world ready to face the global challenges of today. This is my proposal for completing this adage. However, it's saddening to note that society still denies the importance, to recognize the importance of a teacher or teaching. They still believe that intelligence is somehow a fixed commodity that schools simply identify. This perception is not only wrong but fatal, as it denies the power of teaching in the transformation of lives. Such a perception is the real enemy of the promise for a better future. Ladies and gentlemen, teachers do matter, and they are important. The perception of the teaching profession as a reputable job does not rest on the politicians. It doesn't rest on the education officials. Neither does it rest on the media or what they say, but on what teachers do. So no matter how you define teachers, no matter how you speak positively or negatively about teachers, that does not erase their importance in society and in development. To all teachers and the nation at large, I call upon you to abandon the culture of fatalism and replace it with the aspirations of excellence. Teachers can achieve this by achieving good grades for pupils, while government can prioritize salaries for educators, giving them hope. Let's reaffirm the greatness of our nation as a leading education brand, for indeed that's what we are. And we are very proud to be the resource, the most important resource behind that brand. Let's move on to making a call for improved conditions of service once again. I've already alluded to the issues to do with the figures, the salaries, the basic salary, the allowances that we would like to get. But beyond that, we have a whole comprehensive list of demands that we have of what we believe government should do for us in order to enhance and to improve our conditions of service. These comrades, colleague educators are part of the proposal that we submitted last week to government. And by the way, we are only talking about the minimum here. We have said to government that the rural service allowance should be pegged at 30% of one's basic salary. We are also demanding land for housing purposes. There's no professional who is going to teach comfortably in a classroom when they live in the cottage of the main house that belongs to the parents of the children that we teach. There's no way. There's no way you will earn respect. A colleague of mine last week was telling me something very sad. That while he was in class, he asked these pupils if they had any questions. And one student had the audacity to raise his hand and ask, "When are you going to pay our rent?" That happens. I don't want to hitch a ride from my own students because I'm late to school, I'm walking, it's about to rain, and I get a ride from a student's car. No. There is no way we can stamp our authority. We need to reclaim our space as role models in society, and we believe that is possible. So government, land for residential stands and housing. There's a lot of positive talk about indigenization and economic empowerment. And we are very happy that government has made indications that there is a civil service investment trust that will soon be commissioned. We are waiting for that. We have been waiting for that for a very long time. There is no indigenization that can be complete without the empowerment of educators in this country. It is possible that we should also participate in this grand scheme to empower Zimbabweans. So we should position ourselves. We will be working closely with the relevant government ministries to make sure that we give them the model that we believe is going to be the most ideal for our educators to benefit. So a collective position paper has since been communicated to government on these, ladies and gentlemen. And as I said, these are minimum expectations and demands which form the basis of our needs. There's something disturbing, though, in our labor movement. Hence, we need to make a call for unity. Today, we face a challenge of both choice and indifference in the labor movement, particularly with the advent of a multiplicity of unions and associations representing civil servants, representing and claiming to represent educators. We count a total of 13 associations and unions in the civil service. And in the education sector alone, 5. And more are still getting registered. Very soon, I believe we are going to be in a worse situation than Benin, our colleagues in Education International, where we have unions and associations of 200 members, and everybody claiming space in the negotiating table. And everybody, even those who are not educators, coming up with unions and associations for educators, and also claiming space. We have to say this because we lament that situation. What this does is that it weakens the labor movement. Let's have a look at statistics. We have 60% of educators who are not unionized. In spite of all these unions, put their membership together, still it leaves us with 60% of educators who do not belong to any union or association. Right? That is very sad. What we know in the labor movement is that unity is power. And you get your power from numbers. And as we are asking for the right to collectively bargain and the right to strike, do you think if 40% said let's go on strike and 60% said no, you will ever succeed in any force that you would want, in any arm twisting techniques that you would want to employ? Well, I want to believe that the answer is very clear. So we have a big challenge in the association in ZIMTA to make sure that we go all out and we go out there to unionize every educator and bring them on board, because we need those numbers. Such a challenge introduces questions of strategy and tactics. Probably it is to do with leadership and power. And to the seasoned trade unionists, a nagging fear that trade unionism is on the decline. For the future generations, this means they may have to lower their sights and never hope for better days, because we will be divided. So, colleagues, this is something that we have to look at and consider very seriously. I would also like to take this opportunity, take advantage of my position here, to make a call for legislative changes. We are all aware that the new Zimbabwean constitution has brought with it a new paradigm. We are well aware of that. And the challenges that we are facing today are to make sure that we look at the labor laws that we have in this country, particularly the Labor Act, Public Service Act, which urgently needs to be amended so that it is aligned to the new constitution, the provisions of the new constitution, particularly the fundamental labor rights that are enshrined in Section 65 of the new constitution. It is our understanding and interpretation that Section 65 of the new Constitution of Zimbabwe creates a baseline for dealing with collective labor law. The scope of the section provides for employees and their trade unions, employers, and employers' organizations. And one of the important things that the Constitution has done and that we celebrate is that it has a special provision on the issue of collective bargaining to determine wages, terms, and conditions of employment and other matters of mutual interest, and to formulate industrial policy, provide for orderly collective bargaining, provide for collective bargaining at sectoral level, enhance employee participation in decision making in the workplace, and be an effective tool for resolution of labor disputes. So, to that extent, we do celebrate the new provisions as stated in Section 65 of the new Constitution. However, a lot of work has to be done. We need to align the acts that we have so that they are in sync with the provisions of the new Constitution. Because up to now, we have suffered the limited labor law protection available to teachers and civil servants in general. Because what we were doing is not collective bargaining at all. In the end, we ended up calling it collective begging. Because we didn't do more than consulting. The provisions were such that we merely consulted government. And you know what happens when you consult. The party you consult is at liberty. I'll stop here and allow our important guests to walk in and be welcomed. So in the previous dispensation, collective bargaining was largely absent. Following the adoption of the new constitution, there is no reason why labor laws regulating public employment relationship should not be amended as a matter of urgency. ZIMTA strongly advocates for the following. This is very important, colleagues, going forward, that we understand what we are asking for in this new dispensation. 1, sectoral bargaining chambers that should see educators bargain for sector-specific conditions of service separately. As educators alone, we should have an opportunity to come up with sectoral needs that we identify and propose to government. And above that, a coordinating bargaining council for all workers in government that will receive issues from different sectoral chambers. Number 3, the drafting of a civil service collective bargaining council constitution that will supersede statutory instrument 141 of 1997 and give effect to collective bargaining in the civil service and recognized as such under our Acts of Parliament. This constitution should further provide for membership, admission of trade unions, appointment of representatives, procedures and financial matters of council. Such council will realign the current structures of APEX and National Joint Negotiating Council, which are opaque and imperfect systems for promoting labor peace and prosperity. So moving forward, we are envisaging a situation where we are going to have a much more effective collective bargaining council, not the current APEX council. So as ZIMTA again, we make a call and we would like to celebrate the legal services that we are providing as an association. As I speak of the need to change the current legislative environment, I am reminded to invite members to use our ZIMTA full-time legal services in dealing with labor issues at your workplaces. We have full-time lawyers at your disposal. The establishment of the ZIMTA legal department was informed by research elsewhere that today's trade union members, about 72%, join unions for support if one had a problem at the workplace. They joined for logistical and legal advice and not for ideological passion. So it is important, and it will remain important, that as the Zimbabwe Teachers Association, we do have a very strong and powerful legal service department. We therefore call upon our members to use this department to support and defend rights and the entitlement of educators. This address would not be complete if we didn't make a public call for quality public education. The Zimbabwean Constitution has in its national objectives statement a provision for education. The national objectives are meant to guide the state and all institutions and agencies of government on formulating and implementing laws and policies. The national objective on education clearly states the following. 1. The state must take all practical measures to promote free and compulsory basic education for children and higher and tertiary education. The state must take measures to ensure that girls are afforded the same opportunities as boys to obtain education. This provision is further buttressed by the provision on the Bill of Rights in Section 75 of the Constitution. It is important, colleagues, to note the ZIMTA position when it comes to these issues. ZIMTA supports these provisions of our Constitution and further adds that it is not just the provision of education that matters, but the provision of quality public education. Quality education is the foundation of equity in society. It enlightens and empowers citizens, thereby contributing to the social and economic development of their communities. For quality education to be realized, it must sit on a tripod stand of the following. 1, quality teaching. We have no excuse, ladies and gentlemen, as educators, but to make sure that the education that we deliver, whatever we inculcate in our pupils, is of quality. Beyond quality teaching, we talk about quality tools for teaching and learning, and the quality environment for teaching and learning. That environment as well must be of quality. And I want to believe that if we get our inputs right, if we do our processing right, even the outputs, the outcomes, the products from the schools is going to be of high quality. And we will have done everything possible in our power to justify why we are asking for those improved conditions of service and the money that we talked about in the first place. Let me make a note on quality teaching. Quality teaching is ensured through recruitment of high caliber candidates to teaching, provision of high quality initial teacher preparation and education, and support throughout the teaching career. Teachers are the most important educational resource and critical determinants for quality. Hence our call for the enhanced selection criteria for educators. Why is it that the education sector is not attracting the best students from the schools? Those with 10 A's, are they coming to train as teachers? Or are we getting those with 10 certificates, one subject in each certificate? Yes, we need to do this introspection, because we need to be of quality. And we will support anything that the government is going to do to make sure that the quality of teachers in this country is improved. I'm glad we are now saying this in the presence of the minister and the high-ranking officials in our Ministry of Secondary and Primary Education. And to ourselves, colleagues, introspection is very important. We need to continually improve ourselves so that we become teachers of quality. Is it in Sweden where we have teachers who celebrate some of the best conditions of service, highly paid? And I think their education is also well celebrated in the world. And they are boasting of attracting the best from the school system. They get the best graduates. Their first preference is teaching. That is complemented by the best teaching conditions. So we need to look at ourselves in the mirrors in the morning and ask ourselves whether we are quality. We cannot run away from that. And then, having answered that question, we challenge government to say a teacher can never be paid below the poverty line. But already we have passed the test because we are celebrating one of the highest literacy rates. We have the highest literacy rate in this continent. So I want to believe just because of that, government is going to meet our minimal demands of 650 plus allowances just because of that literacy rate.
Kuti Zimta ine maloya. Mune maloya Zimta. I hope havamo. Ichokwadi here maloya kunyepa. Mati kuti. One more time. Ichokwadi here imi maloya kunyepa. Kana chiri chokwadi masungwa munovadireiko. Vazhinji venyu munogona kuridza magitare kudarika ini kana kuti mungadai makagona. Asi musi wakaonekwa kunyanya varume vakaonekwa wakabata kagaroni kane tambo. Vabereki vakatora shamhu ukabhurachiwa sterek. Iwe unoda kuzoita ka. Ichokwadi here vanagwenyambira marombe. Hamuna kupindura wani. Kashe guys. Hamuna kupindura wani. Sure. Regai ndibvunze futi. Ichokwadi here vanagwenyambira marombe. Mati kuti kana chiri chokwadi pamabiko munovadireiko. Chirege ndibvunze last verse very softly. Anongotaura kuti makandinzwa ndishimba ndokurambirai. No, ndiri serious. Kazevezeva komana. Ichokwadi here mapurisa mbavha chaidzo. Hamuna secret. Kana chiri chokwadi majeri azere mapurisa here.
So to all of you, we acknowledge your presence and are gratified by your presence here in these numbers. And of course, I traveled to this session with a team, the highest level possible team from the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education. The Permanent Secretary who has just spoken to you, Mrs. Chigwamba, and the Principal Director, who is himself an old hand in the ministry, Comrade Bora. I'll say some words that are on the piece of paper here. But I want to kind of respond to the kind of perception I thought I recognized when I walked in and your president was speaking to you. But always we respect presidents. Whatever their station,
we must show respect. I think on the new constitution, you want to take your time to internalize its provisions. Chapter 2 of the new constitution is the national objectives. The national objectives are aspirational. They are based on the desires of our people, on what we wish to do as the outturn of our socio-economic activity improves. National objectives are of the order of what you would describe as long-term objectives. And I think that Gundane put his finger on the article that refers to free and compulsory education quite clearly. If it's free education, it's free to the recipient, but it's not free in the sense that there has to be somebody who picks up the bill, the state. And we have to say, is our state now in a condition to be able to assume the full import of educating our people without their contribution? The innovative way in which the 1980s ZANU-PF government established what are conventionally now simply called School Development Committees, SDCs. It was a pioneering innovation to say we are coming from multiple disadvantages and arriving at 1980. The task of education includes everyone. So teachers, parents, business, everybody. And so the structure of SDCs was born. But over the years, and in particular in 2006, the last amendment to the Education Act, it collapsed the School Development Assembly or Association into the one SDC. But again, look at the letters in that SDC. School Development Committees. That's what they are designed for. Nothing else. But as we travel up and down the country, and I've had a good spate of that traveling, it's very clear that the SDCs in some schools have become something else. Teachers are literally squatting in dilapidated huts. Teachers look for water in very unhygienic sources. But SDC funds are being pooled every term. Where are they being directed to? Some of them into the pockets of the very teachers who need a roof over their heads. Some of those funds are also going elsewhere in corrupt ways. In this day and age of literacy, you have heads who cannot read a secular that says 10%, suddenly they become illiterate. If I were to cause an audit team to sweep across our 8,500 institutions, I can tell you more than half of them will be netted in. Because this money could have been put to better use, building structures for teachers to live in, sinking boreholes for you to have safe water. But when we divert funds in this fashion, we then create ourselves new enemies. The state must come in. The state must come in. But we're not looking at the way in which our own hands in the system are leaking the money that should be helping us forge ahead. We don't need a new law to regulate that. That's why permanent secretaries are in place. And for me to be saying, send the A team and audit the heads, I don't want to criminalize professionals. But where those things are happening, at the scene of action, as it were, that's where you are. You are the silent witnesses, or are you that silent? You could be a participant. So when I say I don't want to criminalize heads, maybe I don't want to criminalize ZIMTA members as well. But we have to correct this historical burden that has been bestowed to us by history. Because it cannot continue in this fashion if we mean good for the education sector. It has also played itself out in the kind of divisions among teachers. The urban areas are oversaturated by professional teachers. They even go to court to remain in a school and teach one lesson a week. Well, that will be corrected. We can't have it that way. The Constitution enjoins us to deepen the experience of education to our people. And so we use a very interesting language in the Constitution. We say, officially recognized languages, and then we count them to 16. What it means for teachers is a huge amount of work that is ahead of you. If you are deployed in an area that speaks Tonga, you must begin to understand what they are saying in Tonga. Because the Tonga child has a constitutional right to express itself in Tonga to you. We have also Chibarwe. And even in Kopak, we started asking ourselves, where is this spoken? But it's spoken in our republic. So, at the district level, and particularly, as I'll explain in the next few minutes, at the infant school level, we expect that the 16 languages will be deployed fully. And that transforms the teacher into a learning professional. Now, with a constitutional requirement that you need to engage in dialogue with those who you are teaching. The relevance of the curriculum, I'll say something about that. But it's a given. As our economy transforms itself, our education must also speak to that transformation. I thought I should say that at the outset and then say some nice things for you. Ladies and gentlemen, comrades and teachers. First of all, I want to thank Zimta and especially Sifiso for insisting that I come to this World's Teachers' Day commemoration. Obviously, to this ministry, teachers in both their individual sense and collectivity represent a key pillar in what education means in this country. Your various associations also play an important stakeholder role in the matters relating to your welfare and delivery of quality education that your president was talking about. And by definition, a teacher is a person who provides education for pupils and adults alike. I listened carefully to Doshel trying to explain her experience of being a teacher and the exemplar that she provided of young people engaging in dance. And didn't we have to fight battles with teachers who sometimes asked questions? Dance should be done after school, as if dance is incidental, accidental to the school curriculum. It's an integral part of the school curriculum. And I'm sure after that singing, there's a communication that takes place. Your psychic, your emotion, your spirit is uplifted. Why should you remain depressed when you are supposed to be the inspirer of others? So we think of education, therefore, in this way, that we are educators to young people, but we're also educators to adults. And even that is a limited definition. You are worth much more. You are the proverbial guide that fine-tunes and shapes the palates of our national taste buds. When we start to say, we like this flower, we like this music, and you see Jah Praiser in his uniform, and he animates a whole space with his gyrations. Where are these intimations coming from? Some teacher, some guide, somewhere indicated that the education of the sentiments is also a vital component of what we mean by education. You make invaluable contributions to the life and development of our nation. What Nyabinde does may not be translatable into dollars and cents, but he does it anyway. We find some measure of consonance with the collective voice under UNESCO, which enjoins us all to underline the salience of teachers in nation building and growing economies. And I quote, "Teachers hold the keys to the better future for all. They inspire, challenge, and empower innovative and responsive global citizens. But before you can empower the global citizen, we must focus on the individual professional. Indeed, nothing can replace a good teacher. And the hallmark of a good teacher is that you should be a good listener. And then using insights from your environmental scanning and the tools of the trade, you get the learner from point A to point B. You point the way consistently. You may not arrive at the same destination with the learner. Learners have a tendency to supersede their teachers, and it's a good thing. But you inspire them along. And now, more than ever, we expect you to walk with the learner along this illuminative journey. It is no longer enough to just point the way. You must accompany the learner in the journey of learning. So as a ministry, we are pleased to partner with you as we work to address the myriad challenges facing the education sector. There is plenty of food for thought in this area. For example, how does it strike you that some teachers' colleges run what are called bridging courses? And these bridging courses are akin to the work you do at O level. They run courses in mathematics, in science, and languages. The pass rate, I'm told, is anywhere between 96% to 100% on average. These bridging courses are run over 3 terms, 1 year. Why is it that the pass rate is excellent at this level of the bridging course in a teacher's college? Is it that life experiences for these learners invigorate them to study harder than when you had them in your class? Or is it teacher quality which makes a difference? But let us together search for the hard answers to these troubling questions. If you allow, here's another scenario, if you allow a young child with 3 O levels to proceed to Form 5, they will get the 2 additional subjects in the June and November examinations while they are doing Form 5. And in this scenario, it's you who have the control of those kids in Form 5. Now, we have to ask again, is it because they mature through this 1 additional year? What really happens? Why are they not getting it right at O level? This time around, they are not in a teacher's college. They are with you, and they are passing by using this additional year. We must find the lasting solutions to some of these. Now we have to turn to between Form 1 and Form 4. There's a story there. We need to unpack that story. Is it books? Maybe not just books. Is it the quality of the books? Is it the teachers? Maybe the quality of the teachers. One head of a school told me recently, and I think Bob Nyabinde was going towards this definition. This head said, the material we are working with is all wrong. The reference was to learners. The learners are wrong. Can you imagine if that was a universal assumption that our learners are the wrong material? We may have to import some material to teach, I guess. But seriously though, who comes to Form 1? Is it the learner who started their journey at ECDA at 4 years, or the learner who started grade 1 at age 6 without going through ECD-A and ECD-B. The pre-formal and formal operations of ECD-A and ECD-B are lost to the learner who enrolls directly in our grade 1 class. And for us, in this new mandate, the system response is to refocus the system and place the light on the infant school, which needs our utmost attention at all times. ECD-A and ECD-B are not optional modules, because the children who miss out on those 2 years, I suspect, are the children who are doing well in Form 5 as they do their Form 4 subjects there, or they are doing well at a teacher's college in the additional year. We must look to the foundation. What are the foundational skills acquired and learned during this early period? What specialist skills do teachers need at this stage to foster these skills? As indicated, we have allowed this ECD-A and B to remain in the hands of communities and parents, and what are called paraprofessionals, where the key elements of their activity there is to say, shh, shh, keep quiet, shh, sleep, shh, wake up, it's now time for porridge. And then these are the kids who are embarking on a journey towards Form 4. As indicated, the product, or rather the graduate of the infant school, must demonstrate particular competencies, aptitudes, and attributes. They should, even at this level, be able to demonstrate some comprehension and embracing of the work ethic and orientation that is a given in the strategic direction of this sector.